A big warm welcome back to the shop. I am your favorite builder in my shop, and we need to do a mid-season update. Now I say mid-season because, again, I build all the time. If you've been around the channel long enough, I'm always building. So what I needed to do is take inventory of where we are. Okay, so we've got some goals, right? We need to prep for a whole bunch of events that we're going to go to. So that leads me to my first point. First event that I'm technically going to is the Central Penn Aero Modelers Association RC Expo. Technically, it's an event. So I'll be taking the models that I have for sale and trying to sell them there, as well as some of these other older engines and things that I just don't want or need. So yeah, that stuff's going. I'm getting that stuff ready. So like the Corsair, I've got the manual that came with it. I've also got the plans. Gone through all that stuff to make sure nothing's overly broken, because you forget about things. So yeah, the Sikorsky has sold since that update video. And I think that's the only one. Yes, the only one. Yeah, we've got things to do after that. The first flying event will be the end of April. Okay, so given where we are now, that's like 2.5 months away. Okay, so 2.5 months ago was like November, which is really when my flying season sort of winds down, is in like early November when we get into like the holiday season. So this really is like a mid-build season update for me. So where are we? What's going on? And what are we moving into? So the first thing that I have to address is in order to facilitate the goals of the projects that I've got ongoing, I had to make a paint booth. So you can see back there, there's a plastic curtain, right? So the curtain is a paint booth. So let me take you in there and show you what that is. So moving in, this is roughly 4 by 9 feet. And we simply have an overlap, excuse my bad grammar. And you simply part the curtain and slide in, and here you are. It's really quite boring, but I have this spotlight that gives me good direct light, and with the diffusing of the plastic film, I can see lots of imperfections and things. Now, I have a ventilation system here that is pulling the paint, and you can see that I've actually done some painting in here to test it out. And there's paint on that. That used to be all white. So this works. I left the openings at the top open so that I could pull fresh air in from the top and have it flow down to the bottom. So essentially a negative pressure room, and that is intentional. The reason that I wanted a negative pressure room is because I'm trying to minimize dust output. So if I get a leak in the room, somehow, like if I were to seal it and have a positive pressure room, then fumes or paint or dust or whatever I use in this room could get out and just make a mess. So that's why I'm doing negative pressure. The filters are pretty cheap to replace, so it's not a big deal. And I need this room because I can maintain temperature as well as humidity when I paint. Okay, and when we get to these next projects that I show you what we're doing, Painting is a huge chunk of what I have left to do this winter. For those who have been following along the Dubro live stream, this is the state of where we are essentially. I've got 2 airplanes that are mostly done in the fuselage. Still need to work out the servos for the pull lines, as well as a throttle servo for the Glow version. But I've got the Electra version and the Glow version essentially at the same point. So moving forward, the electric version is going to be my prototyping model. There are a bunch of scale features that I need to do. that I want to make forward progress on, but I don't feel rushed at this point. These models need to be done by July, okay? So I have a lot of time to finish them, take my time, do it right. And most of the work involves essentially the wings and equipment installation. So it's not a lot, it's just I want to take my time and do it right, because one of these models is going to one of you or someone else. You know, I need to make sure that I'm as careful as I can so that the model is as safe as possible. So that being said, these models will continue to make progress, and most of that is going to be viewed on the live stream. I have a couple of other techniques that I'm going to cover on them on this channel, so be watching for those. Most of it is scale detail stuff, just like the engine jeweling. So more to come. The next offender is the Saab. Okay, the Saab, I have a goal to get this thing painted and ready. Ideally, I would like to compete in Summer Nats with the Saab in Scale RC. Not sure what class yet, but the whole airplane is repaired, fixed, ready to fly. Essentially, the landing gear needs to be retightened. It's been serviced. I've got the new strut. It's ready to go in, but really it's all disassembled and I need to prep it for, say it with me now, paint. Okay, so paint is another one of these painstaking processes that takes multiple steps and lots of time. Honestly, the vast majority of the time is not wrapped up in painting. Most of the time is wrapped up in the mask work. So if you're doing panel lines, taking your chart pack tape and putting where your panels are, doing the primer, and then after that, sanding back that chart back tape, removing it carefully, and then doing some additional finish work to enhance that sort of three-dimensional depth, right? It takes a lot of time, and I have to have a place to paint whenever it's ready. And I can't just, do it on a whim and take it outside because the temperature fluctuates. That's why I need the paint booth, okay? So in addition to the paint, you have the prep work. Once you apply primer, you have to sand back the primer, look for any additional imperfections. It's a process. It takes a lot of iterations. So having that dedicated space is going to allow me to actually make progress on this model. The wings are basically ready to go. They just need to be properly masked. Throw them in there and throw some primer, paint, and be done, because it's solid color on the top and the bottom. Not a huge deal. Same with the wheel pants. The wheel pants, I need to prime the inside. And I want to do that with a white primer. And that way on the top, the bottom side, the side that's exposed is the same blue as the bottom side. It's like a robin's egg blue. It's really pretty. With these painted blue, I'll also have the struts painted a little bit as well. That's why some of this hardware isn't fully tightened, because I can easily take it apart, mask things off, and do like an etching primer on this metal and get these struts looking fresh. It's again, time. It's just time. And then the assembly will go together perfectly because the airplane already flies. It's ready to go. Next up is the B-25. Okay, so the B-25, let me go over there and I'll get you an update on it. Really, the B-25 is more or less, I would say, about halfway through its restoration. It sort of sits here in pieces, ready to go. I say halfway through the restoration because there's one wing that needs to be stripped down and prepped. The other wing is back in the shop. But yeah, the fuselage is all primed. It needs to be sanded down just a little bit, and then I need to get the belly pan, wherever the belly pan is. It's around here somewhere. But yeah, get the belly pan, and the belly of the fuselage needs to be painted with this gray. That's what that's for. It'll be this same gray that's on the bottom of the horizontal stabilizer, and that way the fuselage bottom dark color will be done, and then I can do a masking line for the top green and just spray that all green, and that will be ready to go. The green I'm going to use is actually the same green that I have for the Falcon. I really like this dark color. It works really, really well for the US Army. It's, in my opinion, a very scale color, and not to mention, I've got a whole lot of the paint already on hand, so that's the color I'm going to go with. From there, once the paint is done, I've got a whole mess of fresh plastics to go on, including a new greenhouse, which is going to require a frame fabrication on the canopy in the front. Everything else should be pretty straightforward in terms of just sticking it on the model with some canopy glue. The nacelles, that first nacelle is ready to be painted. It's been all sanded down and imperfections taken out. So again, assembly, paint the bottom, and then blend in with the green on the top should be easy. The difficult part of the B25 is honestly the remaining fiberglass work. There's a couple of pieces that, okay, so like the aileron, this is an aileron, right? So the aileron gets covered in a fabric covering because these were covered in fabric and scale. But the flaps were metal. So that means I have to glass each flap. So this is a pretty complex shape. It's going to take just time. It's a time suck. So with that, you know, it's just a matter of sitting down and doing it. It doesn't make great content for you guys. So I can do that sort of in the background and give you an update when I've got a whole mess of it done. And then there's the wing panel. The wing panel is pretty much ready to be glassed. Let me show you that. We've got the whole wing panel here. There's some staining on it that looks like it's rough. There's a little bit of epoxy here that's left over from the cover, but honestly, I'm going to be putting that back on once it's glassed. And then once I have it back on and epoxied in place, I will blend it in. So that's not going to change much. But in order to get this all together, there's this piece of wood, right? That goes something like that. Wrong way. There we go. Like that. Okay, so that piece of wood goes there. So I have to glass this whole thing, get the flaps back together, put the flaps back on, then glue this back on, then I can glass this. It's a process. Just lots and lots of time. And then I've got to do that twice, right? And then I have to put the servos back in. So aileron servo, and then 2 flap servos. Because there's, well, no, it's 1 flap servo, but there's 2 flaps with torque rods, right? And so I have to adjust those mechanically. And then install the pods and make sure that all the pneumatic lines are run through that hole. You know, just time. But, you know, obviously I've made some repairs. This is all perfectly smooth. It's ready to go. It's nice and hard. So glassing this is not going to be a problem. It's just I've been focused on other things. The last thing that I need to get done this winter is the Falcon. And the only thing that the Falcon needs is those flying wires, the flying and landing wires. And if I'm honest, what's really going to help me to get that done is selling a bunch of planes. If I can just get room in the shop, I can set up the Falcon somewhere and just leave it there. And then I can address 1 wire a day or something. I need space because it's so huge. It's just massive when it's set up. So that's that. Other than, you know, setting it up and just knocking it out in a day, that's a lot of work to dedicate for 1 day. I just don't think I can do that. Anyway, it's all about time management, folks. And that's it for now. I'm sorry it's a lot of talking head stuff, but we've got a lot of really cool projects, and I'm helping you understand how to manage your time, manage your projects, because sometimes is difficult for people. They get motivation on different projects and they get sidetracked, or they're waiting for parts to arrive. Notice how none of this stuff is parts dependent, right? It's just time management. The way that I build is I make sure that I have everything that I can possibly think of off the top of my head and even plan for, ordered ahead of time before I start the project, so that I can just go with it. It's just a time game, because honestly, that's your most precious asset in all of this, because there's family, there's job, there's all sorts of things. There's family emergencies even. Okay, so if you just have everything ready to go, you'll be set to just manage your time and it'll be great. So, thank you so much for stopping by today. I have a work trip next week to go to, so I will be gone all week, so I won't have anything built. But it's supposed to snow tonight, so I'm probably going to hit the field tomorrow and finally do some snow flying, some good snow flying. It'll be amazing. Hopefully, because there is supposed to be some pretty heavy wind setting in right after the snow drops. So anyway, thank you. Again, stop by dubro.com and get your 10% off using Josh10 in your checkout, and make sure that you continue working on your flying works of art.